Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into something I think a lot of us have probably thought about.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the ethics of eating meat.
hmm
So, is it ever okay to kill animals for food?
Yeah, it's a big question.
Yeah, and our listeners have sent in some pretty thought-provoking stuff. Actually,
Mhm.
we've got this great article called "The Ethics of Eating Meat: A Moral Dilemma."
Okay.
And we're also going to be looking at Peter Singer's Animal Liberation, which is like,
The classic.
yeah, like one of the foundational texts in this whole area. So
Absolutely.
this article, it really gets into like the nitty gritty,
Yeah.
talking about factory farming, climate change.
Yeah.
So, get ready for a deep dive.
Really, it's going to be a really fascinating discussion. And it's a debate full of tension because, on the one hand, humans have been eating meat for a really long time,
Yeah.
like millennia. It's part of our evolutionary history. But on the other hand, the practices that we see in factory farming are causing a lot of people to really question whether that history really justifies the suffering of animals.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, right? Like
Yeah.
the article presents those two kind of opposing sides.
hmm
So like, how do we even start to think about those together?
Yeah, well, that's where Peter Singer's work comes in. Animal liberation kind of changed the conversation about how we view animals.
Oh, okay.
And Singer argues for something called sentience, which is the ability to experience feelings.
Okay.
So pain and joy and suffering. And he says, well, if an animal is sentient, then shouldn't we include them in our moral considerations?
Right. Oh, that's really interesting. Um, it made me think about something that the article mentioned, which was this idea of ethical farming.
Right.
What does that actually mean?
Yes.
Could that be like a middle ground?
Yeah, ethical farming can cover a whole bunch of different practices.
Okay.
Things like free range, grass fed, even organic.
Yeah.
The idea is to raise animals in a way that prioritizes their well-being.
And minimizes harm. But, these methods often come at a cost.
Right.
Literally, prices are higher.
Yeah.
And figuratively as well, because they may not be able to produce the same volume of meat as conventional farms.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. It also kind of makes me think about like my own choices when
Yeah.
I go to the store, you know? Like, where does this meat I'm buying actually come from?
Absolutely.
I've got to say, I haven't really thought about it that much before, honestly, but this is really making me think about it in a new way.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And this is where the environmental piece of the puzzle comes in.
Okay.
The article's really clear about how meat production and factory farming especially
Yeah.
is a huge contributor to greenhouse gases,
Right.
which drive climate change.
Right.
So it's not just about individual choices anymore. It's a global issue.
Yeah, for sure. The article also talked about the rise of veganism.
Right.
So more and more people are choosing these plant-based diets.
For both the ethical reasons we've talked about
Absolutely.
and the environmental reasons as well.
Mhm.
Could this be the future? Like,
Yeah.
are we all going to
Yeah,
be
well,
vegan?
Yeah. I mean, I think it shows a growing awareness of how much impact our food choices really have. And it's not just about going fully vegan either.
Yeah.
People are reducing their meat consumption,
Mhm.
doing flexitarian diets,
Yeah.
meatless Mondays. It's about finding ways to make a difference that work for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Speaking of new approaches, I was super fascinated by the section in the article about lab-grown meat.
Right, yeah.
So, like, meat that doesn't require raising animals
Yeah.
and slaughtering them. Do you think this could be a real solution?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely promising.
Okay.
Lab-grown meat could be a total game changer.
Right.
It could address a lot of the ethical and environmental concerns that we've talked about today.
Mhm.
But there are some big questions, right?
Mhm.
Can it be produced on a large enough scale? Will it be affordable for everyone? And will people actually want to eat it?
Right.
So there's a lot of research and development still to be done.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
sounds like there's no easy answer to this question we started with,
Yeah.
Is it okay to eat meat? This has been a really, really interesting conversation, though.
Hmm.
The ethics of eating meat, they're complex.
Right.
And there are good points on all sides.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest takeaway from this deep dive. It's not about finding the right answer.
Right.
It's about thinking critically about our food, where it comes from,
Yeah.
making choices that work with our values.
Mm. So before we wrap up, here's a question to leave you with, something I was really thinking about.
Okay.
What if lab-grown meat does become widely available?
Right.
and affordable?
Yeah.
Would you choose it over traditional meat?
Hmm.
And why or why not? Something to really think about. Thanks for diving in with us today, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We'll be back with more food for thought next time.